guys, Cassie here. Welcome back to my channel. Today is a rant day in the car because I've been wanting to make this video for a little while and I just keep not making it because I don't have time, and so I decided to just hop in the car and do it. So these are my unscripted thoughts, and I'm going to be talking about something today that is a little bit, I wouldn't say super controversial, but I would say that while I do feel like I have a strong opinion on this subject right now, it's not something that's like, you know, a super serious moral thing that like I'm never gonna change my mind on this. Like, I am subject to change my mind in the future, maybe. So I don't know, if you're watching this video in like 5 years or something, it's possible my opinion might be different now. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, first things first, if you're new here, hello! My name is Cassie Beebe. Welcome. I am the author of 8 clean romance novels now, and welcome. Lately I've been posting a lot of videos here about like kind of how-to instructional videos on how to like write and publish books, which I do have a lot more of those planned in the future. But today I just wanted to rant about something that has been on my mind. So a few days ago, this topic kind of came up in one of my writing groups, and I feel like it's one of those subjects where there are a lot of different opinions, especially depending on whether you are a writer or a reader or both. People can have differing opinions. So what we're going to be talking about today is book reviews. What is the purpose of a book review? What are the ethics of leaving a book review? How should you review books? How should you rate books? And do those ethics change depending on whether or not you yourself are also an author? Or does that not really matter and the ethical boundaries are the same whether you're just a reader or a reader and an author? Those are kind of the three subjects we're going to talk about. So let's start with question number 1. What is the purpose of a book review? Well, there are basically two schools of thought. I would say that from a reader's perspective, if you are just a reader and you're not an author, in my opinion, obviously I am also an author, so I can't speak as just a reader, but I'm also a reader. So I have a similar mindset as readers, but you know, I also have that author part in there as well. So I kind of can see both sides. So, you know, I can't speak for everybody who's just a reader. But from what I have seen, I feel that there are kind of two main purposes of book reviews from a reader's perspective. The first is to tell other people, other potential readers, how you felt about the book. To tell them, is this a good product? Is this a well-written book? Did I enjoy the story? And not just in a way that's like, oh, I liked this or I didn't like this, because what you like might be different than what I like, right? So it's helpful from a reader's perspective to have, for people to leave reviews that tell you a little more than that go into depth on what exactly did you like and what exactly did you not like. Because it maybe you didn't like it because of a certain trope or a certain cliche or whatever, or like a character type or character arc that you didn't enjoy, but maybe I really enjoy that trope or that cliche or that type of character. So I might read your review, and even if it's a 1-star review because you hated the book, everything that you say about why you hated it might make me think, well, I actually might kind of like that. So I would say that is the first purpose of a book review from a reader's perspective, is to tell other people what you liked and didn't like about the book so that they can make an informed decision on whether or not they want to buy that book and read it themselves. Now, I would say that there is also a second purpose to book reviews for readers, and that is community and getting to talk to other people about the books that you've read and enjoyed, or the books that you read and really hated. Because it's just enjoyable to talk to other people if you've both read something and you want to discuss it. Now, that is something that has been really important to me throughout my life. Not just when it comes to books, but honestly, maybe even more so when it comes to like movies and shows. I grew up in a family where we watched a lot of movies and TV, and we loved to talk about those things and to really like deeply analyze all of the characters and the writing and the cinematography and the direction and the acting, and like really get into, like, that's something my family just really enjoys. We like to dig deep and like dissect all the little things and talk to each other about how we feel about certain things, and then how the other person saw it maybe in a different way. And it's like, that's just a normal thing that people like to do, right? And so of course people also like to do that. Some people also like to do that when it comes to books. Now, for myself personally, I don't really have a lot of friends in real life who read the same books as I do. So if I want to have that kind of community when it comes to books, I'm going to have to do that online. And book reviews and book review sites like Goodreads or something are a good place to do that. So the way I see it, that is the purpose of book reviews when it comes to like a reader's perspective. But in the writing community, I have noticed that a lot of authors seem to see it differently. They seem to see the purpose of book reviews a little bit different. So I'm going to say that there are like maybe 3 purposes of a book review from an author's perspective. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying that all authors feel this way. I'm an author and I don't agree with this, okay? So, but this is just kind of a typical narrative that I keep hearing coming up in author spaces when it comes to leaving reviews. So from an author's perspective, the purposes of a book review are, one, the first one I would say is the same as what the readers would say, to inform other people about how you felt about the book so that they can make an informed purchase decision. I mean, obviously authors do understand that that's kind of the point of leaving a review. But there's 2 other ones added on that I think readers don't think of in this way. Some readers do, of course, but not all of them. And a lot of authors do tend to think this way. So I would say that a lot of authors, again, I'm gonna keep saying authors versus readers, and please understand that I'm just speaking in generalizations, and I don't mean all authors or all readers, and I also don't really even like separating authors and readers completely as if they're 2 totally different groups of people, because pretty much every single author in existence is also a reader, so they're a part of this camp too. So hopefully you get that I'm kind of speaking in generalizations and, don't get too hung up on that. So the authors seem to think of reviews in 2 different ways. A positive review is an opportunity for a reader to promote an author's work and to help that author by telling other people that this is a really good book that you should buy or you should read. To either actively spread the word to other readers about this book and about this author, or just to prop up the author in terms of giving them a really good star rating that helps, raise their star rating on review sites like Goodreads. And then on the flip side, a lot of authors seem to see negative reviews as an opportunity for readers to help authors, remember that word help there, to help authors learn what they have done poorly, what they could do better in the future, and how they could maybe improve their craft. So all in all, I feel like in a lot of author spaces, I seem to see a lot of authors looking at reviews in general, whether they are positive or negative, as the purpose of the review is to help the author in some way. And that is what I want to talk about today, because I so strongly disagree with that. I don't think that the point of a book review is to help the author at all, honestly. I don't think whether it's positive or negative, I don't think that that's the point. And there are a few reasons why I feel very strongly about this, and why I think that looking at reviews in that way leads to a lot of really murky, borderline unethical behavior that I really don't like. So let's get into it. So just to be clear, in case it wasn't already clear, when it comes to these 2 schools of thought between how the authors think in general and how the readers think in general, I am on the side of the readers. I think I agree that that is the point of a book review. It's those two things I talked about from the reader's perspective, to tell other readers what you liked and didn't like about the book so that they can decide if they want to read it, and for the purpose of community, so you can discuss books with other people because that's an enjoyable thing to do. I very much agree with the phrase, reviews are for readers, or reviews are not for authors. Okay, I very strongly agree with that. And there are a lot of reasons why, and I haven't scripted this video, so hopefully I'm not all over the place in discussing my reasons for this, but I'm just going to kind of dive in and, yeah, hopefully it won't be too scattered. I think my main problem here is when it comes to writing negative reviews, because honestly, the thing that kind of sparked this is a subject I've wanted to talk about for a while, but the thing that really made me want to talk about it particularly recently is a post came up in one of my author communities that was about negative reviews. And this gets into the ethics of, there's a structure we can use here to this video, so I'm not all over the place. In the beginning, I said we were going to talk about what reviews are for and what the ethics are for how you should write a review, and then whether or not those ethics change when you are also an author. So let's get into that point number 2. What are the ethics of writing a review? Is there a certain way that you should or shouldn't speak about a book in a review? So this time I'm going to talk about the author's perspective first, because again, like I said, a lot of times, I'm not going to talk about positive reviews right now because I don't really think there's much to be talked about in terms of ethics for writing a positive review. Like, just gush all you want, we everyone loves to hear that. Readers will get use from it, and authors obviously enjoy hearing you gush about their books. So I would say the only ethical boundary on that front would be not to actively spoil like really important things or big twists or anything. And if you are going to have spoilers in your review, then either, make note of that, or on Goodreads, there's a box that you can check that says this review has spoilers, so it'll hide it from people who don't want to see that. That's kind of the only ethical boundary I think is there when it comes to positive reviews, at least that I can think of at the moment. Now, when it comes to negative reviews, this is where I really have some, I don't want to say beef, but I disagree a bit with some of the way that the author community talks about reviews. So like I said, a lot of people in the author community seem to see book reviews as an opportunity for the reader to help the author in some way. And when it comes to negative reviews, that would be to help the author see what they've done wrong and how they could improve in the future. So what authors want to see in their negative reviews is really kind, constructive feedback. And I am of the personal opinion that what these authors are looking for is a beta reader, not a book reviewer. If you want to get kind, constructive feedback on how to improve your book and how to improve your writing, you should be looking for not ARC readers. It's the opposite of what I'm trying to say. Alpha readers is what I meant. Beta readers or editors. Those are the people who exist, and there's tons of them. Some, beta readers are often unpaid, so you don't have to pay for that even. And then you can pay editors. Those are the people you can go to for constructive feedback on your writing, whether that be for one book in particular or just your writing in general, how you can grow as an author. Those are the people who are there to give you constructive feedback. I do not agree that reviewers are there to write a negative review for the purpose of helping you, the author, learn what you have done wrong and do it better in the future. And this, I think, is why so many readers are so strongly yelling from the rooftops, authors, get the heck out of our review spaces, because You're reading our reviews, you're getting offended, you're getting upset, and feeling personally slighted when we tear your book to shreds because you as the author, a lot of authors are coming to the review space expecting constructive feedback. And that's not what reviews are for. They're not for giving you constructive feedback. Reviews do not exist to help you learn how to write better. That's not what they're there for. They are there to communicate the things people liked and didn't like so that other people can see if they want to read it or not. And they're also there, I very strongly believe in that second point, they are also there for community, for engagement, for people to get together and be able to talk to each other. And yes, sometimes that means rant to each other about everything that they hated about this incredibly stupid book they just read. That, I believe, is completely appropriate for readers to do. And I believe that for a few reasons. One is because reviews do not exist to teach the author how to be a better writer. Reviews are not for the author in the first place. They are for other readers, not for you. And when I say that, by the way, I am not someone who believes that authors should never read their reviews necessarily. I think some authors probably shouldn't. It probably would be better for them. But I read my reviews, and I have a couple, I don't have a lot of negative reviews. I have a couple negative reviews. Some that are, I mean, honestly, the two that come to mind are like, they were not very, again, not very helpful, right? They weren't constructive feedback that said, here are some of the ways that I think this author could have improved this book. No, they were just, this book is stupid and trash and I hated it. That's not constructive or helpful for me. But guess what? That doesn't matter because it's not for me. But I just bring this up now because I wanted to be clear that I'm not saying that I think authors shouldn't read their reviews if they want to. If you want to read your reviews and you want to try to learn something from them, I think you certainly can. You can learn things from your reviews. I have had comments in some of my even more positive reviews. There might be something that someone's like, oh, I really liked this, but I didn't really like this part. And, I can take that to heart and be like, or not to heart, but, keep that in mind and be like, okay, yeah, that's good feedback. Maybe I should do that differently in the future. So I'm not saying that authors can't learn something from their reviews, but that is not the purpose of the review. That is potentially an extra side effect that might be helpful, but it might not be present, and it's okay if it isn't present because that's not the point. But anyway, another reason why this view frustrates me of authors getting upset about negative reviews, and listen, I mean, I'm not saying it's normal to be upset if someone says that they hated your book or if they rant about all the things they despise. I mean, that hurts a little bit. I get it. I'm not going to say that those reviews that I've gotten that were negative didn't kind of hurt and, made me disappointed. But I'm not angry at the reviewer, and I don't think the reviewer did something ethically wrong by writing that review. That's the distinction. I can be hurt by it. It can hurt my feelings a little. It can make me sad that they didn't like my book. But I don't think that they did something morally and ethically wrong by saying what they said. And one of the reasons that I think this debate comes into play is because authors seem to be, and listen, again, I get it because I'm an author and our books are very close to our heart, but a lot of authors seem to be tying their product, their book, to themselves too much. To the point where if someone is tearing your book to shreds, you take it as a personal attack. It's not about the product, it's about you as an author. It's being mean. I see a lot of, when this discussion came up in my author group, there was a lot of talk of like, well, you can give constructive feedback and you can say you didn't like something, but you don't have to be a bully about it. And you don't have to be mean about it or cruel or attack people. But here's the thing. they're not being a bully if they are tearing a product to shreds. You can't bully a product. And they're not attacking somebody by tearing a product to shreds, because that product is not a person. They aren't attacking you, the author, and they're not bullying you, the author. They are attacking, maybe, if it's a really, really terrible, negative, ranty, snarky, just like inflammatory review, they are tearing a product to shreds. They're tearing your book to shreds. They absolutely hated it. They thought it was terrible and garbage. They're not hating you. And they're not attacking you, and they're not bullying you. That's just not happening. Now, small caveat, that can actually be happening. There are ways that you could write a negative book review and it could actually get into really like personally attacking the author, and I don't think that that's right. That is something that I do think is ethically not good. You should not, that is an ethical boundary that I agree with, and that I think readers, for the most part, also agree with. That readers and authors can both agree that it is unethical and not cool to personally attack the author in your negative review. I don't think that's necessary. But I think authors really need to stop seeing people talking negatively about their book as if it is a personal attack on them as a human being. So, when it comes to the ethics, what is ethical for you to write in your negative reviews? I think both sides can agree, for the most part, that it's not ethical to personally attack the author and be really mean and cruel and bullying to the author. But I think that the people on the author side need to be better at distinguishing between that and people being mean about the product, because you are not your product. You are a person. And if they are attacking your product, they're not attacking you, and you can't go around calling them a bully and saying that they're mean because they hated a product that they bought and they wanted to talk about how much they hated it. So I think we can both, for the most part, agree on that part. But where I think the disagreement comes is a lot of authors really would like for negative reviews to never be ranty, to never be snarky, to never be perceivably mean. And they would like them to always be constructive feedback, not like, oh my gosh, I really hated this, or I can't believe this character did this, it was so stupid. They want you to say, I didn't personally enjoy this part of the character arc, and I think it could have been better done in this way, because they're looking for a beta reader is what they're looking for. They're not looking for a reviewer. They're looking at reviews and conflating them with constructive criticism or a critique partner or something like that. And I think I disagree with that. I think on the reader's side, I would say there is no ethical problem with ranting and being a little snarky, even if you want to, about a book being bad. I don't think that is ethically wrong for people to do, because it is a product, not a person. And I also just find it kind of interesting, as a really big film buff myself, I find it interesting that I never hear anybody in the film community talking about reviews in this way. I never hear, I guess not never. I guess sometimes I hear people saying this, although we all kind of collectively agree that when actors or directors, make some public statement about, a critique or a critic review of their product, their film, if someone critiques it and makes a review that says it's really bad, and they publicly respond as if that person was stupid or whatever, we all kind of collectively look at that actor or that director and think, dude, what are you doing? Don't say that. They're allowed to have their opinion, and you just look bad by calling them out like that. But I don't see that happening very often, and I don't see professionals in the film industry on a wide scale, like talking about how, you know, critic reviews really should be more constructive in their feedback, and they shouldn't be mean or snarky. They should consider how they could help us learn how to make better movies in the future. And like, I just don't see people talking about that. Although, to be fair, I'm not a filmmaker in any way. I'm not an actor or a director or a screenwriter, so maybe I'm just not in the spaces where people are having those conversations, and I am in those spaces when it comes to the author's world. But anyway, the point being, I personally don't think there's anything ethically wrong with writing really, really strongly worded negative reviews if that's how you feel about a book. And that brings me to one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, which is the third point of my points. So we talked about what reviews are for and the ethics of how to write reviews. I don't think there's anything else I really want to say on that. I mean, I'm sure there are other things that people maybe have like an ethical standard. I guess we could talk a little bit about star ratings. A lot of people have very different views of star ratings, and I've noticed very specifically authors and readers have very different ideas of how you should star rate a book. And I should mention that because this is a point where I do think that I can totally see both sides, and because I'm an author and I'm a reader, I'm very conflicted because the star rating thing is kind of a problem, because from the author's perspective, anything less than 5 stars is bringing our overall rating down. So if you really loved my book and you give it a 4-star review, even a 4-star review for an author could be a little bit like oh, dang, like that's going to bring my rating down overall. It's like if my rating used to be an average of like 4.5 and then you give it a 4, then that maybe brought it down to like 4.3 or 4.1 or 4-star average instead of closer to the 5-star average. So anything lower than a 5 stars brings the rating down. So for a lot of authors, their perspective is like, if you liked a book and you don't have any complaints, then you should give it a 5-star rating. And you shouldn't give it any lower of a rating unless something went wrong. And to some degree, I kind of agree. But then my reader's side kicks in, and I kind of agree with more of what a lot of readers would say about their star ratings, which is that 5 stars is reserved for books that are like really outstanding and that go above and beyond just something that I loved. And a lot of people would say a 4-star book, actually some people would even say 3 stars is I loved it, 4 stars is I really loved it, and 5 stars is this is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. Now, for an author, that scale sounds insane. From the author's perspective, it's like 3 stars is like very average. So if you say that 3 stars means you loved it, to me, when I see that you gave me 3 stars, I'm thinking you thought my book was just really average and you didn't really care for it all that much. So in general, I think star ratings are just confusing and kind of a problem because it's obviously better if you can actually read reviews. And I don't really put a lot of stock, and I don't think a lot of people put a lot of stock in just the overall star rating average because all of us have a different idea of what that scale means. And one thing I do find really helpful, I've noticed on Instagram, a lot of people who post reviews often will, every time they post a review, they also have an image that shows what their star rating system is. So they'll show you, like, I gave this book 3 stars, and then they'll say, this is what 3 stars means to me, right? So that you kind of understand. I think that's super helpful. So if you're a reviewer and you do that, good job. I think that's really, really helpful. But star ratings can be complicated because of the different scales. And I kind of see both sides of the coin, because as an author, I understand that it's frustrating when your like ratings are going down, even when all the reviews are like super overwhelmingly positive and like, oh my gosh, I loved this book, but it's like a 4-star or a 3-star. And you're like, well, if you loved it, then why didn't you give it 5 stars? I can see that perspective. But on the other hand, as a reviewer myself, as a reader who reviews the books that I read, I have found it difficult to adopt that author's mindset of, unless something goes wrong, I'm going to give it 5 stars. Because I kind of started doing that for a while, and the problem I had is that then, I was reading books that I was like, yeah, like this was really good. I didn't really have anything I had a problem with, so sure, I'll give it 5 stars. And then I read a book, I don't even remember which one. Oh, yeah, I do remember. It was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I read that book, and I was just so utterly obsessed with that book. I mean, you can ask my husband. I was driving him a little crazy. It was all I wanted to talk about for a solid 2 weeks. I was obsessed because it was such an absolute masterpiece to me. And when I went to go review it and I went to put 5 stars, I was like, how can I give this book 5 stars when I gave these other books 5 stars that yeah, I liked them, but they were not this. This was way better than those. So that is kind of when it clicked in my head, okay, there is definitely some merit, I think, to the idea that 5 stars should be reserved for, this is a masterpiece. Because if you give everything 5 stars and then you read a masterpiece, then it feels like giving it 5 stars is not good enough, because it should be better than that. So I do think there is something to be said about having 4 stars kind of be the standard, I loved it and didn't have any problems with it, so that you can save 5 stars for the ones that just really, really blow you away. Because otherwise you don't have anything outside of the content of your review to show that this book is light years above these ones here. They're not on the same level for you personally. All right, so that leads me into the third part of our discussion, which is, we talked about the ethics. Now let's talk about, do those ethics change if you are also a writer or an author? And this is kind of what made me want to make this video, because in the discussion I was having with other authors in my author group, there seemed to be a consensus. I was going to say that there was a debate going on, but honestly, there wasn't really much of a debate. It was really mostly me disagreeing with everybody else. It seemed like there was mostly a consensus, and a lot of people were silently liking my comments, but most of the people who were speaking out were definitely in agreement with each other, and I was kind of the one dissenting from that. There seems to be a bit of a consensus among a lot of authors that you should not give a negative review to another author if you are also an author. A lot of people see it as unprofessional. That's a word I've seen thrown around. A lot of people see it as burning bridges is something I've heard. And I have so many problems with this. Now, first, let's talk about the part that I agree with. Okay, I can kind of see your point. I can kind of see the point that it's hard, because if I'm putting myself in the mindset of the first part that we talked about, what authors seem to think of reviews being for, if that's how you're thinking of it, is a review should be constructive feedback, well, then I would say if a negative review is supposed to be constructive feedback, then I would say, well, then no, you shouldn't write a negative review as an author when you could just reach out to that author yourself. You're in the same sphere, right? You don't have to put it publicly. You could just reach out to that person and say, hey, I read your book and I thought it had some issues that I wanted to bring up to you in case you're interested in having some feedback. That would be a nice, courtesy to do. Although honestly, I don't think I would want someone to do that to me. People have different opinions on that. If I got a message like that about a book that's already published that I'm not going to change, like I don't think I would want to get an email like that personally. I would rather they just leave me a negative review, but maybe that's just me. So I understand the perspective of these authors and why they say it's unprofessional, because you're kind of like colleagues if you're both in the author sphere and you leave them a negative review. But again, I have a different opinion because I think I'm on the reader's side of what reviews are supposed to be for. And I think just because I'm an author, why should I now not be allowed to, first of all, share what my honest opinion is of a book that might influence someone else buying it? And second of all, why shouldn't I be allowed to have a reader community to chat with other people about what I didn't like about a book? I have a problem with that. I've been a reader for many, many years of my life, and I've really enjoyed having that community, so it really sucks to be told that since I like writing books now, I'm not allowed to have that community anymore. Only if I have something positive to say, then I can have the community, but if I have something negative to say, I'm not allowed to talk to anybody about it. I don't like that. I'm sorry, I don't like that. I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't think that's right. For a while, I started to kind of adopt sort of this consensus idea that seems to be running in a lot of author spheres, that authors shouldn't negatively review other authors' work. And I tried to do that for a while, and then it came to a point where I felt like there were many reasons why I don't think I want to do that, and I don't feel right about it. And when I say I don't feel right about it, I want to be clear that I'm not necessarily saying that people who live that way are wrong or are doing something unethical. I'm saying that for myself personally, it feels dishonest, and I want to explain why. So there are a few different reasons why it feels dishonest to me, and a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of a nicer way to say it. It feels fake to me to not write negative reviews because I'm an author. And here are some of the reasons why. One is this is probably the main one. Honestly, this might be the only, this might kind of encompass all of it, but I feel like to say I'm not going to write a negative review because someday I might meet this person and who wrote this book that I wrote a negative review of, and if I write a negative review, I'm burning bridges. That is a term I've heard many times throughout this discussion. You're burning bridges. To me, what I hear when someone says you're burning bridges is that author is probably not going to want to work with you in your professional life if you write this negative review of their book. And to me, what that says to me is you are willing, again, I feel bad saying this because I feel like, but I mean, it is how I feel. I feel like when you say that, you're telling me that you are willing to not lie, because you're not going out of your way to say that you liked their book. You're just declining to say that you didn't like it. But you are willing to suppress your honest opinion because you might be able to get something from that person in the future. And that's honestly what it feels like to me when people say that. Because if you say you're burning bridges, it's like, well, what bridges are you burning? That person might not want to work with you. That author might not want to help you with your book or promote your book or give you a positive review or give you a blurb or, one of those quotes on the back of a book that says like, oh, Casey West says that Cassie's book is awesome. That would be great. I love Casey West. I've never given her books bad reviews because I think they're great. But to me, what that tells me is like you're willing to just like not be fully transparent. I don't want to say not be honest, because choosing not to say something negative is not being dishonest necessarily, but you're willing to suppress your full opinion about something, because if you share your full opinion, that person might not be willing to give you something in the future. And to me, I don't feel comfortable with that. I would rather be honest and transparent about what I think about a book. And if that means that Frida McFadden never wants to work with me because I thought her book, Never Lie, was terrible and I gave it a 1-star review and I went on quite a rant about all of the things about it that I thought were really, really bad. And the reason I did that is honestly partially because it was the first time I've ever read a book that I genuinely felt kind of scammed by reading it. Like if I had paid money for that book, I would have been angry. I would have said, this book should not have cost me money. You should not have been selling this book. It was not ready to be on the shelf. So anyway, if that was my opinion about the book, I'm going to share that opinion. And if that means that Frida McFadden doesn't want to work with me in the future, she wouldn't anyway because we're in different genres. But hypothetically, she doesn't want to work with me in the future. Okay, why would I want her to work with me? First of all, why would I want someone who I think is not a very good writer to promote me and to be associated with their name when I don't think that they're very good, I don't really want that. And also, I don't want to suppress what I think just so that I can get something from someone in the future. I really hated this book. I thought it was absolutely terrible and this writer is not good, but I'm not going to post a negative review because maybe I might meet her someday and she might be able to help me out a little bit, and I don't want her to not help me out because I didn't like her book. That to me feels scummy. I don't like it, and I'm not saying everyone has dishonest motives, but if they do things that way, but for me personally, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to be honest about what I think about books from now on, and I'm not going to live by this, I'm never going to write negative reviews thing, because I think it's fully appropriate if I have something that I think is valuable to say, to share with other readers and say, if you're considering buying this book, here's some things you might want to know before you do, because I don't think it was very good. I think that's perfectly appropriate. And B, I think it's perfectly fair for me as a reader to get to still have that community with other readers and chat about the things we didn't like about a book. And I don't think that community should be off the table for me now because I'm also an author. And if that means that other authors don't want to work with me because I am comfortable leaving honest reviews when I don't like a book, so be it, I guess. I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with not working with those people if that's how they feel about it. I think I'm going to go ahead and call this video now. I probably had more things I could say, but I've been talking for a long time and my phone is actually dying. So I would have to go charge it or something first and come back. So that's basically all I wanted to say about this. It's a little bit of a challenging subject to talk about because I don't want to come across like I'm calling all these other people unethical or scammy because they won't leave negative reviews. But I'll be honest, I really do have a big problem with a lot of the kind of reciprocal arrangement sort of things in the author community. It does sometimes start to feel dishonest to me when it's if you promote my book to your audience, I'll promote your book to my audience. But it's I haven't read your book, so I don't want to promote your book to my audience. I don't even know if it's good. And it does kind of bother me that so many people are comfortable doing that. And I've done it a little bit with in terms of newsletter swaps, which I think is a little different, which I will talk about in a video coming up soon. I think it's a little different, but to be honest, I don't think it's different enough, and that's why I have actually decided recently that I'm not going to be doing newsletter swaps anymore for that reason, and I'll talk about that some other time. But I think there are a lot of things when it comes to these ethics of being a reader and a writer and reviews that I just kind of have mixed feelings on what a lot of other authors seem to think about how this all should work. So yeah, that's how I feel. If you're ever wondering whether or not my reviews are honest, or if and I'm not saying that other people's reviews aren't honest if they only give positive reviews. They're not being dishonest, they're just choosing not to write the negative ones, which is fine, they can do that. But I'm simply saying it's fine if you want to choose not to write negative reviews, but it's also fine if I choose to write them. And so just as I'm not calling you unethical for not writing negative reviews, you shouldn't be calling me unethical for writing them and saying that I'm unprofessional. It's not unprofessional. I'm a reader who read this book, and readers who read a book have every right to share a review of what they think of it, because reviews are for readers, not for authors. So they should be completely separate things, honestly, as much as possible. So, yeah, that's how I feel about it. I'd also just like to throw in one last caveat before my phone dies, that I am not a super famous author. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about this from the perspective of authors who are kind of like mid-list. I'm not even mid-list. I'm like way below that. Nobody knows who I am. So that is kind of different. I will say I might feel a little bit put off if some super famous author like Suzanne Collins or something, or Stephanie Meyer, like put out a 1-star review for some other author's work. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a point where you become well known enough that that becomes a different question, because that becomes a question of you have a really huge platform, and people, if you choose to give a negative review for someone, especially someone whose platform is much lower than yours, then you're punching down and you're, telling all your audience, oh, don't read this book, it's trash. And like, that is a totally different question with a whole different set of ethics. So yeah, that's my last caveat, to explain where my perspective is coming from my current level of fame, which is not any fame. Anyway, so that is gonna be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'm gonna go before my phone dies. And let me know what you think in the comments below. If you agree with me or if you don't agree with me, I would love to hear your thoughts. For the most part, I really don't care if you disagree. Like, it's fine if you disagree. What makes me angry is the way that people who disagree really villainize and demonize the people they disagree with. On both sides, I guess, but for me, I've seen a lot of it from the author side of, if you write a negative review of another author, you are an unprofessional, shady piece of garbage, and I'm never going to work with you. That, to me, is insane and really inappropriate, and I very strongly disagree with that. So that's it for me. I will see you guys next time, and bye. Wait, hang on. It's me. I thought of something else I wanted to say. I came inside and took a shower and started thinking about ARC reviews, which I really want to touch on really quickly, because this is another system that I think has a lot of problems in it, and a lot of things that I honestly think are kind of unethical, and I really have an issue with. So I never did ARC reviews until, I think, Working with the Enemy was the first book that I did ARC reviews for, and I might have done ARC reviews for Faking It with the Informant as well. I'm pretty sure I did. I didn't do any for Falling for Sunshine. So just those 2 books, I think. At least Working with the Enemy, maybe both of those. Sorry, my hair is bugging me. Anyway, but now that I've done ARC reviews, and so I've joined groups that are for ARC readers and for authors to share their books, I've noticed that there's a conversation going on in the ARC community where ARC readers are asking authors, what should I do? Or asking other ARC readers, like new ARC readers are asking seasoned ARC readers, what do you do when you really don't like the book that you were given to ARC review for? And I have kind of an issue with the response that has been given. There are a handful of people who would say, you know, post your honest review. That's what you got a free book in order to give an honest review, so just post your honest review, right? But the vast majority of the responses that I see, mostly from authors, are that if you got a free book, that the purpose of you getting a free book, that the reason authors give out ARCs to get reviews is so that they can get some positive reviews in before their book comes out, so that when their book does come out, it hopefully will help more people to want to read it, right? Now, that is true. That is why authors do this. I mean, we don't just give away free books just for the heck of it. We give it away because we're hoping that it'll give us something good in return, like some positive reviews. But their response to this question is usually, since that's why authors do this, and we're giving you a book in order to get a good review in the future, in return, if your review is going to be negative, you should not post a review at all, and maybe directly message the author with your feedback instead, and tell them personally and privately, I didn't like the book that you gave me, and here's why. To give them some constructive feedback, which again goes back to authors having a skewed idea of what reviews are for. They think that it's for helping authors learn how to fix their book and give them constructive feedback, which is not what it's for. That's what a beta reader is for. But anyway, the reason I have a really big problem with this is because I think this makes the entire system of ARC reading kind of unethical and a little dishonest and scammy. Because listen, I am not saying ARC readers are unethical and scammy, not at all. I am not saying that if you see a review that says, I got a free book in exchange for this review, I'm not saying that that review is dishonest or that it's not what they don't actually feel all the positive things they said about it. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But what if I'm putting out a book and I give out 100 ARCs and 10 of those people loved the book and gave it a 5-star review, and then 90 of them privately messaged me and said, I thought this book was really, really bad, and if I reviewed it, it would be 1 star. So out of respect for you, since you gave it to me for free, I'm going to go ahead and not review it at all. What kind of message do you think the readers, other potential readers, are going to see when they go to my product page for my book that just came out? They're going to see 10 5-star reviews. That's all they're going to see. They're not going to see the other 90 people I gave this book to who thought it was a 1-star but chose not to post that. And I have a problem with that because that makes me not trust. I don't trust it. When I go to a new book that came out not very long ago from an indie author and there's maybe like 10 reviews or 20 reviews and they're all 5 stars, but they're all from ARC readers, honestly, I don't feel like that means anything to me. Because sure, it tells me that these people liked it, but I don't know how many other people besides these people were given this book and hated it, but felt that they weren't allowed to honestly review it because they've been told, well, we authors are giving you this book for free, so if you're going to negatively review it, you're going to tank our rating. I've heard authors say that to ARC readers. Like, no, you should never give a negative review as an ARC reader because you'll tank the author's rating. I'm sorry, but that is not the ARC reviewer's problem if your rating is going to be tanked because your book was bad or because they thought your book was bad. And I say this as an author myself. I fully understand that it sucks if people don't like your book, and it would suck to have your rating be really bad when it your first, on the day it releases, you have ARC reviews pouring in that are all really negative. That would suck. But if your book is that bad that all of your ARC reviewers hate it, then maybe you shouldn't have published that book. Maybe you should learn in the future to take some more time to hire an editor to do whatever you need to do to help it not have that response. I just really dislike that a lot. I think it's unethical. I will go so far as to say I think it's unethical to tell your ARC readers, if you don't like this book and your review is going to be negative, don't post one. Because that's actually literally what is against Amazon's terms of service, is giving away a free product and telling the person you're giving it to, you can only post, please give me a positive review. That is against the terms of service. The only reason that ARC reviews slide in, and sometimes they don't, but the only reason that ARC reviews are not taken down by Amazon as violating terms of service is because they are said to be honest reviews. That yes, I was given this book for free, but I am giving my honest opinion. But I don't think that's true entirely, because yes, that ARC reviewer is giving their honest opinion, but there might be a bunch of other ARC reviewers out there who weren't allowed to give their honest opinion, or didn't feel that they were allowed to give their honest opinion because the author or other authors in their ARC group were kind of telling them not to if it was going to be negative. So anyway, that seemed relevant to me to discuss because it is on the topic of reviews and the way that readers and authors see things differently, and some things that some ways in which I think authors are kind of making the review system a little bit shady and unethical and hard to trust. It's hard to trust reviews nowadays because of these kinds of practices. So once again, I will just close out this video here by saying I 100% agree with the sentiment that reviews are for readers, not for authors. And authors, if you can't handle that, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you can't handle that these reviews are not for you, they're for other readers, then don't be in reviewer spaces. And I'm not saying all authors can't be in reviewer spaces. I am an author and I am in reviewer spaces all the time because I'm also a reader and I'm also someone who likes to review books, and I'm not going to stop doing that just because I like to write books too. I'm going to do both, and I think it's fine to do both. But it's not fine to be in reviewer spaces if you're going to try to form them into what you think they need to be from your author perspective because you want your book to only have positive reviews and not have negative reviews, or you want to try to persuade people or guilt them kind of into putting higher stars or not reviewing other authors' books if you don't like them and all that stuff. I think all that stuff needs to stop, and I think people need to be allowed to just share their freaking honest opinions about books, and other people need to chill out about it and remember that a review about a product is not a review about a person, and it is not an attack on you, and it's not bullying, and it's not mean if someone gives your book a 1-star review. So that's it. Bye.